welcome back to the deep dive. We try to focus these deep dives on stuff you actually asked for, and today's topic is one we've gotten a ton of requests for.
Definitely a popular one.
Quantum biology.
Yeah.
So, get ready, because we're going to be diving into a world where quantum mechanics, the super weird stuff that governs how atoms work.
Yeah.
That stuff somehow is mixed up with biology, with life itself. Basically, the idea is that life isn't just using chemistry like we always thought.
Right. It's more than that.
It might actually be using quantum mechanics to actually function.
Wild, right.
It's pretty mind-blowing. And the book we're looking at this time, Life on the Edge.
Great title.
It dives deep into all the evidence pointing towards life harnessing this quantum world.
I'm honestly a little skeptical. Like, how can the stuff that explains how atoms work also be messing around with our cells? But I gotta say, I'm super intrigued.
Yeah, that's a pretty natural reaction, I think. It does sound kind of science fiction-y at first.
But the book really does a good job of, like, giving these really compelling examples. They talk about how enzymes work, even how birds might be using, like, quantum entanglement
Oh, wow.
to navigate. It's really fascinating.
Okay, so where do we even start? Quantum biology. This seems insanely complex.
Yeah, so the book starts off with a pretty fundamental question, which is, how does life maintain such incredible order,
Okay.
even on a molecular level, right? Living things, they're highly organized, but the world of molecules, that's just inherently chaotic.
Totally. I mean, our bodies, they're basically juggling, what, trillions of these tiny particles?
Yeah,
And somehow it all stays organized and works.
exactly. It's pretty wild when you think about it.
Yeah.
And actually, Erwin Schrödinger, like one of the big names in quantum mechanics, he actually brought this up way back when.
He did.
Yeah, in his book, What is Life? He suggested that life might be using what he called order from order. Basically, life isn't just battling against disorder all the time. It's like it's tapping into a different kind of order, one that exists at this quantum level.
So instead of just chaos at the smallest level, there's like a whole different set of rules down there.
Exactly. And the book, it explores how this plays out in tons of areas of biology. For example, we could look at enzymes. Those are the workhorse molecules. They make so many chemical reactions happen in our bodies.
Oh, yeah, enzymes. They speed up reactions, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like catalysts. But how could they be connected to quantum mechanics? I don't get it.
So there's this really cool story in the book about Mary Schweitzer.
Right?
She's a paleontologist.
Yep.
She discovered soft tissue
Right.
in a T-Rex fossil, and this fossil was 68 million years old.
Wait, soft tissue. You mean like muscles and tendons?
Yeah.
After millions of years, how is that even possible?
Right. It seems crazy. And it made scientists realize that this enzyme, collagenase, the one that breaks down collagen, it must have been incredibly stable for all that time.
So it was basically inactivated for millions of years.
Pretty much. It's like finding a perfectly preserved molecular machine from the dinosaur era.
That's wild. But I still don't see the quantum connection here.
So this discovery, it got scientists thinking that maybe enzymes are doing more than just like regular chemistry.
Okay.
Turns out they might be using something called quantum tunneling.
Quantum tunneling.
Yeah.
What in the world is that?
Okay, imagine a particle, let's say a proton, in the classical world, right?
Yeah.
To get over a barrier, it needs enough energy. Like, think about rolling a ball up a hill.
Right, got to put in the effort to get it over the hump.
Exactly. But in the quantum worlds, sometimes these particles can just tunnel right through that barrier, even if they don't have enough energy.
So like the ball just magically appears on the other side.
Yeah, kind of. It's like teleporting, but at a super tiny scale.
That's nuts. But what does this have to do with enzymes?
Well, researchers have actually shown that enzymes can utilize this proton tunneling thing.
No way.
Yeah. It means that reactions in our bodies are happening way faster than they should, according to, like, normal chemistry.
So you're telling me these tiny little enzymes are using quantum mechanics to, like, speed up reactions that are happening inside us right now?
It's happening all the time. Every time you digest food, every time your cells make energy.
That's incredible.
There's a good chance that quantum tunneling is a part of it.
So if our bodies are messing around with quantum mechanics at such a basic level, what about the plants we eat? They doing quantum stuff too?
Actually, yes. Photosynthesis, the way plants use sunlight to make food, it's even more mind-blowing. The book basically says plants are acting like quantum computers, and they're way more efficient than anything we've ever built.
Hold up. Plants are quantum computers. How is that even possible?
Okay, think about the challenge here. Plants need to capture light energy, right, from the sun, And then they have to transfer that energy to a very specific spot called the reaction center, and that's where it's used to make sugars.
So the energy from the sunlight has to travel to a specific location to be useful.
Exactly. And it's super complicated. When a photon, which is a particle of light, hits a chlorophyll molecule, it creates something called an exciton. That's like a little packet of energy.
Okay, so excitons are little bundles of energy from sunlight. Got it.
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, these excitons, they need to travel through this crazy maze of chlorophyll molecules to reach the reaction center.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, scientists, they were totally puzzled by how they did this with such amazing efficiency.
Yeah, it's like super intricate energy delivery or something. But how do they find the right path?
Well, this scientist named Graham Fleming, he used lasers to study photosynthesis, and he discovered something totally unexpected. He found something called quantum beating.
Quantum beating, what is that?
Imagine you have two musical notes. They're very close in frequency.
Okay.
When they play together, you hear this kind of beating sound, this variation in the loudness. Right. That's because the sound waves are interfering with each other.
Yeah, okay, I get that. So you're saying these excitons are creating some kind of interference pattern.
Exactly. This quantum beating, it shows that the excitons aren't just taking one path to the reaction center. They're actually exploring many paths at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a quantum thing called superposition.
It's like they're checking out all the possible routes at once. But how does that actually help them?
It's this quantum coherence, that's what we call it. It allows those excitons to find the reaction center way faster than if they were just, like, randomly bouncing around.
So that's the key to their efficiency. That's amazing. So that apple I had for breakfast this morning,
Yeah.
quantum mechanics helped make that happen.
It did. It really makes you rethink how life works, right?
Totally. But wait, there's more, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Have you ever thought about how we smell things?
I mean, yeah, I know it involves my nose. But beyond that,
It's way more complicated than you might think, and it could involve quantum mechanics, too.
hold on. You're saying my nose is doing quantum mechanics? This is getting weirder and weirder.
It is pretty wild. So the book introduces us to Luca Turin. He's a scientist.
Okay.
And he was totally obsessed with smell. Like, he spent his whole life trying to figure out how our noses work. And he came up with this really radical idea.
I'm all ears. What did he figure out?
For a long time, scientists thought that smell was all about the shape of molecules.
Okay.
Right? The idea was that a molecule, say, of coffee, it fits into a specific receptor in your nose, like a key in a lock.
Okay.
And that's how you smell it. It's called the shape theory of smell.
So our noses are just giant molecular keyholes.
That was the main theory. But Turin, she wasn't convinced. He thought smell might be based on something else entirely. The vibrations of molecules.
Vibrations, you mean how fast the atoms in the molecule are, like, shaking?
Exactly. And he thought we might detect these vibrations through, you guessed it, quantum tunneling.
Back to tunneling again. But this time, it's helping us smell.
That's the idea. And to test it, Turin did these crazy experiments with deuterated molecules.
Okay, deuterated. What's that?
They're molecules that have their hydrogen atoms swapped out for these heavier deuterium atoms.
So they're the same shape, but they weigh different.
Exactly. And because they have different weights, they vibrate at different frequencies.
I see where this is going. So if it's all about shape, like the old theory says, then these deuterated molecules should smell the same, right?
Yeah.
But if it's about vibrations,
They should smell different. And guess what?
they smell different.
They do. He even did experiments with fruit flies.
Get out of here.
I know. And they could tell the difference, too. So even fruit flies, it seems, can pick up on these quantum vibrations.
So if he's right, does that mean that the smell of, like, an orange is actually resonating with, like, my olfactory receptors? That's crazy.
It's a wild thought, right? But this is the kind of out there thinking that's pushing the boundaries of what we know about biology.
All right, I'm sold. I'm officially on board with this quantum biology thing. What other crazy examples are we going to dive into?
Well, next time we're going to talk about how birds might be using quantum entanglement to navigate.
No way.
And we'll even explore how evolution itself could have these deep quantum roots.
Quantum birds and evolving genes. I can't wait. See you next time on The Deep Dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into quantum biology.
So last time, we were talking about how even our sense of smell, something we take for granted,
Yeah.
that could be using quantum mechanics.
Right. That idea that Luca Turin had, how it's not just the shape of the molecule that we smell, but maybe it's the vibrational frequency too.
It's just wild to think that these tiny vibrations could be creating the sense we experience, you know?
For sure.
But you also mentioned something about quantum birds last time. Are we really going to talk about birds using quantum mechanics to navigate?
Oh yeah, we are. It's one of the most fascinating parts of this book.
Right.
It focuses on European robins, those little birds that can migrate like thousands of miles, and they always get back to the same spot.
Yeah, it blows my mind how they do that.
Mm.
Fly across continents and somehow find their way back year after year. I know they use landmarks, the sun,
Right.
but there's got to be something more to it, right?
There is. Scientists think they have like this internal compass that lets them sense the Earth's magnetic field.
So they have a built-in GPS, but
Yeah.
it uses magnetism. But how does it even work?
Well, that's where the quantum stuff comes in. The book explains how the scientist, Klaus Schulten, he proposed that these things called radical pairs in bird's eyes, they could be acting like a compass.
Radical pairs. Okay, break that down for me. I'm lost.
A radical pair is basically two molecules, and they each have an unpaired electron.
Oh.
And these electrons, they can get into this special state. It's called an entangled state. Imagine two coins flipping in perfect sync, even if they're miles apart.
Oh, like what happens to one instantly affects the other. Isn't that entanglement? That spooky action at a distance that Einstein talked about.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical. Scientists have done experiments, and entanglement is definitely real. Schulten's idea was that the entangled state of these radical pairs is super sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field. So basically, the bird is seeing those magnetic field lines.
Wait, so these radical pairs are acting like tiny little compasses because their entangled electrons are responding to the Earth's magnetism.
Exactly. And there's actually a protein in birds' eyes called cryptochrome.
I think I've heard of that.
It's thought to be where these radical pairs hang out.
Yeah, isn't there some idea that this cryptochrome thing might be how humans sense magnetic fields too?
There is, but the evidence for that is still kind of weak.
Right.
With birds, though, it's much more convincing.
Okay.
And what's even cooler is that this quantum compass might be linked to their vision.
Wait, you mean they might actually be seeing the magnetic field? Like they see some kind of pattern?
Some scientists think that those radical pairs in cryptochrome, they could be messing with the bird's visual perception somehow,
Wow.
like creating a magnetic overlay on top of what they normally see.
So it'd be like having a sixth sense, a whole world of magnetic fields that we're totally blind to. Makes you wonder what other senses we might be missing, right?
Totally. The natural world is full of stuff we haven't even begun to figure out.
Yeah.
But speaking of wonders, let's switch gears a bit. What about something even more fundamental, DNA?
DNA, you mean like our genes, the blueprint of life? What's that got to do with quantum mechanics?
Well, think about this. DNA replication, that's the process of copying our genetic code.
Uh-huh.
It's insanely accurate. Like, errors happen less than once per billion base pairs copied.
That's got to be one of the most precise things in the universe. Our genes would be a mess otherwise.
Right. And this amazing accuracy has made scientists wonder if quantum mechanics might have something to do with keeping things so precise.
So you're saying quantum stuff might help prevent errors when DNA gets copied?
That's one possibility. But some scientists are also thinking about how quantum mechanics might actually contribute to the mutations that drive evolution.
Wait, hold on. So those tiny changes in our DNA, the ones that let life adapt and evolve over time, those could be caused by quantum mechanics.
That's a pretty crazy idea, right? But to get it, we got to look closer at the structure of DNA itself.
Okay, back to high school biology class. What's the quantum connection here?
Remember the base pairs that make up the DNA ladder? Adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, A, T, C, and G.
Yeah, the 4 letters of the code of life.
Right. And the sequence of these base pairs is what carries all our genetic information. But how does the cell know to copy those base pairs correctly every time during replication?
Yeah.
And how do mutations, those errors, even happen?
Yeah, it does seem like a lot could go wrong when you're talking about billions of base pairs being copied over and over.
Exactly. And the book suggests that this proton tunneling thing, the same quantum phenomenon we talked about with enzymes, it might be happening inside the DNA molecule too.
Hold on, so those protons are hopping around inside our DNA too.
That's the theory. And it turns out that where those protons are can actually affect how the DNA bases pair up during replication. So, to understand this, got to talk about tautomers.
Okay, tautomers. Another new word for me.
Think of it like this. The DNA bases, they can exist in slightly different forms, like how you can rearrange Lego bricks to make different things.
Okay.
Same building blocks, but different arrangements.
So, same atoms, but they're just arranged differently in space.
Yeah, exactly. And these different arrangements, these tautomers, they can sometimes cause the wrong bases to pair up during DNA replication.
So if a proton tunnels to a different spot, it changes the arrangement of the DNA base, and then the wrong base gets added when the DNA is copied. Is that how a mutation happens?
That's one way it could happen, and it would mean that something like a quantum event, like proton tunneling, is actually causing the mutation.
So quantum mechanics is messing with the very code of life. It's pretty amazing and kind of scary, too, if you think about it.
It is. But it also shows you how powerful these quantum things are. The book even talks about research by these guys, Johnjoe McFadden and Al-Khalili.
Okay.
They're exploring how quantum measurements during DNA replication might be involved in mutations, too.
Quantum measurements, what does that even mean?
Well, in quantum mechanics, there's this thing called the observer effect. Basically, just by observing a quantum system, you can change how it behaves.
Wait, so just by looking at DNA, we might be changing it?
It's definitely controversial.
Yeah.
But some scientists think it could be happening, and if it's true, that's huge. Imagine the act of observing DNA, like during replication, could actually cause a mutation. It would mean quantum mechanics is directly involved in how life evolves.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. So we've got quantum birds navigating with entanglement, our sense of smell maybe relying on quantum tunneling, and now even our genes mutating with the help of quantum mechanics. This quantum biology stuff really changes how you see the world.
It's definitely a whole new perspective, and we're really just scratching the surface here. But we've got one more stop on our quantum biology tour, and it might be the biggest one of all: the origins of life itself.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone pretty deep into the quantum world, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
It's amazing to think how these mind-blowing quantum things could be happening in everything around us, even in our senses and in our DNA.
Right, it's a whole new way of looking at things.
But you said this deep dive would explore the origins of life itself.
Yeah.
And that's a question that's always boggled my mind. How did life actually begin from, non-living stuff? Could quantum mechanics actually hold the answer?
It's a huge question, and it's one that Life on the Edge really tries to answer. The book takes us way back to the early Earth. Imagine a hot volcanic world, oceans filled with basic chemicals.
Okay.
And the big challenge is figuring out how those simple ingredients somehow formed the first self-replicating molecules, the things that eventually led to life as we know it.
So we're talking about that primordial soup idea, right?
Yeah.
That mix of chemicals that somehow created the spark of life. But how? It seems like the chances of those chemicals randomly bumping into each other in just the right way to create life, those odds would be, impossible.
That's one of the main problems with the classic view of how life started.
Yeah.
It relies on pure chance and massive amounts of time for those lucky combinations to happen.
Right.
But the book suggests that quantum mechanics could have sped things up.
A quantum shortcut to life. Okay, now I'm really interested.
So think about all the ways those early chemicals could have combined. It's a huge, almost impossible number of possibilities. Scientists call this the search space.
So it's like trying to find one specific grain of sand on all the beaches in the world.
Way bigger than that.
Wow.
But quantum mechanics, it introduces this idea of quantum walks. And these are super fast ways to search through all those possibilities.
Quantum walks, is that like those particles taking multiple paths at the same time that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a quantum search engine going through all those possibilities way faster than any regular search ever could.
So instead of just waiting for random chance, quantum mechanics might have, guided those first steps towards life.
It's a pretty amazing idea, right?
Yeah. It really shows how these quantum phenomena might not just be shaping life,
Yeah.
but they might have been the spark that started it all.
Definitely.
I gotta say, learning about quantum biology has completely changed how I see the world.
I hear that a lot.
It's not just a bunch of chemical reactions happening. It's like this amazing dance between the normal world and the quantum world.
It's a total paradigm shift, and it opens up so many questions. For example, what if we could use this knowledge to create new technologies? Imagine medicines that target specific quantum processes or quantum computers based on how plants do photosynthesis.
That's incredible. We could learn to use quantum mechanics to solve some of our biggest problems.
It's definitely a possibility. But even beyond the practical stuff, just knowing about this connection between the quantum world and the living world is just awe-inspiring, It makes you realize life is way more amazing than we ever thought.
I couldn't agree more. This deep dive has been a wild ride. Thanks for taking us through the world of quantum biology.
My pleasure. And for all our listeners who want to keep exploring, definitely check out Life on the Edge. It'll really blow your mind.
And as always, keep thinking, keep asking questions. Who knows what other secrets are out there waiting to be discovered? See you next time. on the deep dive.
Loved this video? Smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And don't forget to order the book, link below.